recording.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us for our second virtual meeting. Thrilled to see you all on this, thank goodness, beautiful Nashville day. We've got one new member. Is he with us? Has he joined? I don't see his name on the list. So when he makes it in here to join us, we'll be sure to give him a second to introduce him. But let's go ahead and start by Carol. Would you mind going through the roll call?
Jeff Broussel here.
And I think we're going to try to go down a list. Okay, except that what's going to hold us back is that Carol's not here either. Fabian, do you have the list in front of you? Can you do the roll call?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm going to do it by first name alphabetical order, okay? Antoine Fox, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Ben Pacino. Carol Lesian. I'm going to ruin everybody's name. David Van Cliff.
Present.
Dina Swarner. Elizabeth Miller.
Here.
Patia Suso.
Here.
Gary Schechter. Jan Prunty. Jacob Cupin. Garrett Lane. Jason Sparks.
Present.
Jeff Brussel.
Here.
Inyata McGee. Lauren Balmer.
Here.
Lindsay Gilmore.
Here.
Matt Ingram.
Here.
Michael Jones.
I'm here.
Nick Cobbin.
Here.
Paula Pendergrass. Ramona Golston. Rhonda Kinslow. Sharon Barker. Shivan Cindy. Thomas Hain.
Here.
Tyler Brusher.
Here.
Veronica Zabaleta. And Whitney Pastorek.
I'm here. And I saw Carol join. Carol, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, 6 o'clock is kind of tough some days
I
because
know.
I'm literally flying in from work.
Well, we're glad that you made it. And then I see our newest member, who's Ben Pacino from District 20. Ben, do you want to briefly introduce yourself? And
District 20.
I was trying to get my camera to work. Looks like it's not. But I'm Ben Passano. I'm in District 20 and happy to join y'all.
we're glad you're here, Ben. Thanks for joining. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and move on to, we can't do anything with the minutes because we're not in person, so we'll just swing past that. Let's move into old business first. I'm wondering if anybody had any feedback from their at-home reflection after our last in-person meeting.
Well, I don't know if this qualifies for that, but I'm interested in getting flyers. I'm sure there's a lot of flyers somewhere, and I was wondering where.
I ordered, I have 2,500 flyers in English and 800 flyers in Spanish. And
Okay.
I'm happy to get you, if you guys tell me where to bring it, I'll bring it to you and I'll leave some for you to use. Just send me an email with an address and how many,
Okay.
and I'll bring them.
Mm-hmm.
And Fabian, while we're waiting for that, for your purchasing power to come through, could I ask if our Kurdish committee member would be willing to do a translation of the flyer into Kurdish so we could get the ball rolling with that community?
So good news, we finally got the business unit set up, and I already engaged with the translator to translate into 8 different languages, including Kurdish. It should be done in about a week. And after that, I will order printing a number of flyers for each one. So we should likely have flyers ready in different languages in a couple of weeks.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Anybody else with reflections from our weekend meeting or thoughts you had over the course of the week, things you noticed, anything like that? All right, hearing none, I want to move on briefly to the agenda for the next meeting. Because we're going to be breaking into these small groups, I don't want to assume that we're all going to end at the same time, nor do I want to force people to stick around if their subcommittee flies through the work. So just briefly to give you an idea of what I was planning on doing, it is basically exactly what we're doing in the second half of our meeting tonight, which is breaking into our subcommittees to make it through these guidelines. If you get your work done tonight within your subcommittee and have something to present to the group, we'll open the meeting next weekend by having anything that's been sort of solidified within your group presented to be voted on. And then we'll just go ahead and split back up. And my thinking, if people are amenable to it, is that if your subcommittee concludes its work in terms of the language in the book, that will then hop into other subcommittees to assist them. Especially, I think that engagement or eligibility subcommittee, which is really kind of the heart of what we're doing. Does anybody have thoughts about that they'd like to share? Sorry, y'all, my internet went down, so I couldn't hear if anybody said anything. I apologize.
It was silence.
It was silence. Okay, remember how like rule number 1 was to tell Whitney to shut up and y'all talk? I just want to make sure that we're all. But if everybody's cool with it, that certainly moves us along here quickly. So next meeting, we'll just continue this work on the book. Super. I'm so thrilled to be working with such an amenable group of people today. I am then thrilled to go ahead and just move right on to our guest speaker who's joining us. It's a real honor to have her here. Judith Tackett was the director of the Metro Homeless Impact Division for quite some time and stepped away from that role a while back in order to become more of an independent consultant and work with communities more directly. I'll let her give you a fuller rundown of what she's doing right now, but there's no one who I trust more in this city to speak about how best to engage and support people who are experiencing homelessness, as well as people who are experiencing transitional housing arrangements. And so I know so many of you had questions about how we can best honor that community with our work. So Judith, dive right in, my friend.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. And I'm like, this is too high praise. Now I have to actually live up to something. And it's too much pressure. So first of all, I really am, I need to express this. I'm in awe of your volunteering to do this work because it is a heavy lift and it's really important work. I'm coming from, so you hear an accent, I'm a Swiss citizen and I grew up in a direct democracy where you actually have a lot of referendums and that's kind of something normal. So it's really important for me that this is a really important process. I think that residents and citizens of Nashville have some input in the budgeting process and how it impacts the city. So I'm Judy Tackett. I'm with Tackett Consulting. I work with different local organizations right now on do some contracting work, some still around systems building, or most of it still around systems building or fundraising, grant writing, and solutions of how we can collaborate in this community. And one of the interesting pieces, I'm working very, very closely with the contributor and some others on how we can lift voices of people with lived experience, especially again in the homelessness field. And so when Fabian reached out to me, and if I can help, I'm like, I'm all in. This is very important that we always make an effort to reach out to communities. I am not sure, and Fabian or Whitney, can you let me know if everybody has received the two the two handouts that I wanted to see if could be forwarded, just as examples that I'm going to talk about?
Yes, they were forwarded.
Okay. So I'm not going to read what's on there, but basically one of the handouts is a one-pager. And that, thank you again, Fabian, for helping me with going through it. The goal was for me to think about where are people experiencing homelessness naturally already gathering, so that we meet people where they are and explain and reach out and engage them in those places. And I reached out, I created a one-pager for service providers, because the other piece is, if people are already at service provider locations, for example, at day centers where they come in for meals, at some certain churches where there are meal places, at places like, and the best example for me right now is the contributor. They have every 2 weeks a breakfast meeting when they release the straight paper, the next issue. And where are people already naturally that we can talk to them what's going on and how they can get involved. And the second piece is the staff right now in the service provider sector is really stressed, understaffed, when you throw something else at people, it's kind of one more thing to do for them. So the goal was, rather than for them to go online and figure out what is participatory budgeting, let's just do that personal touch where I would also pick up the phone, call them, send them a one-pager with the pertinent information, talk them through how easy this really is, and give them some suggestions how they can, with some groups or classes that they already hold, how they can inform people how to participate and how they can support them. So that was kind of the one flyer where it's really going through the explanation and how to support people in a way. Then the second flyer was actually created with feedback that I received from Room and Inn when I had that conversation with them. And they're like, Judy, there needs to be some explanation. We have people that use the computers here. If there's something that we can give them some guidance, that we can place there. So it's like a two-pager, but it's like the first page really is very simple language, very boiled down language that doesn't take too much time to think through, of here's what you can do. What are your ideas for Metro to spend $10 million, and guide them through how these first steps on how to go online so people can do it on their own. I actually find the online portal is pretty easy and walks you through it, but it's to get over that first hurdle to engage people. I think that's really important. And then the other idea is the piece that can be a little bit difficult for marginalized populations and people in poverty in general. Because we are looking here at capital improvement ideas, usually one-time expenses. That is generally, when you look at studies, not really at the forefront for people in poverty. Their concern is very largely focused on housing, on education for their kids, if it's a family, on things that actually, safety, on access to jobs, things like that, ideas that would not be really possible and sustainable for this type of or the current round of participatory budgeting. And so I was and took that guidance that it would be really, it's important to provide some example of ideas so people know what we're really looking for. And that's kind of the second page. And because some of the questions online also go under, does this fall under bus transportation, street, alleys, intersections, and all of that, that's kind of a structured it the same way. So it's presented the same way as it is online. So those are the two handouts as kind of some examples. But these handouts were also put together in mind that there is, as of now, only an online option for people to access. And I would encourage you to really think through, are there any other options that people can access as well? Any paper ballots, if that's doable. If not this round, then is there something for next round? So those are some of the things I have right now. The other thing I wanted to talk about, what I have been doing with the contributor is I'll go to the breakfast. I'm going to go to the next one next Wednesday. And then I talk real quickly what the participatory budgeting is. And even the first time I went, I already had people, and then I'm there with a computer. And if somebody wants to come up and submit an idea, and they do not have a computer at home or access to a computer or anything, they just come sit with me after that meeting. And I look, they look with me over the screen. I walk them through it and we do it together right there. And one idea at a time. And I'm going to be there as long as it takes, as long as we have this. And we already have submitted a few ideas that way. Now, one of those ideas was maybe not as, not a one-time expense, or not as that type of idea that I would judge would be making it into the final voting, that wouldn't be weeded out. But at the same time, I think for marginalized populations, it's not my role. It's my role to be like giving them maybe some props and giving them some ideas of what this is looking for and explaining. But if a person insists on putting in something like we need more affordable housing, and I directed, well, where would you see that happening and things like that? In the end, I'm not going to submit any idea. It's their voice. Their voice needs to be heard the way they want it to be heard. So even as me being at the computer, I will not direct what people can say and cannot say, or submit and cannot submit. I just want to be open about that. I feel very strongly about that. We cannot empower people and then, be the ones that already filter yet again what they're experiencing in day to and day out. It's really important to just be in a sense, a tool for them to be heard. Other ideas that I have and I think would be really, really beneficial is libraries have computers. There are a lot of people that don't have computers at home that access the computers there. So having a person at a library that is your contact person, look at where is that staff member that actually is passionate about doing this and providing some assistance and figuring out, is there an hour a day? Is there 2 hours a week? Whenever they can do that and can announce it, and do the same thing with somebody right there at the library, and not just a downtown library, maybe even in certain branches where they know a lot of people experiencing homelessness come in and out, to set up something similar of what I'm doing at the contributor. And that's pretty much in a nutshell already it's about being creative, but it's also about being there with a computer and helping people right then and there, not wait until paper ballots or anything else is already out there and ready, and then also work with you and be in touch with what your ideas are and how I can be out there helping you implement some of these ideas. I think that's really important. Any questions. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention with people experiencing homelessness, I'm looking right now, can we find somebody who is doing street outreach? Because a lot of street outreach workers have now, you can do this on the smartphone. You can do the same thing and actually do it right there in the field if the setting is right. So I'm trying to figure out who would be a good person to help test this out and work with, so that even people in an encampment or at a meal site could do that as well.
Thanks, Judy. That is fantastic. Does anybody have questions, thoughts, comments?
And sorry, like you might have already discussed this before. Have we thought about a text-based option? Because I know, like, I used to work at Room in the Inn. Like the dumb phone of smartphones work a lot longer. Smartphone, and so I just didn't know if that was an option. Like text in a response, and then it was kind of centralized data entry in a world where people may be able to fill out the same thing that we have online in paper, and then give that to someone who could submit that maybe on their behalf, if that's even allowed.
And to your first question, I don't believe that the city has built, nor do we have time to build a text-based option, but people in the short term, until hopefully we decide that paper is the way to go, which again is going to need to be starting, I think, with the voting committee subcommittee, but we'll get there, I think, because we've talked about this before. But people can call 311 to submit their ideas over the phone. That right, Fabian? That's an option. Yeah, so people with quote unquote dumb phones, like my father, could just call in via 311.
This is Nick. I did have a thought. This is a thought, not a question, but just as you were speaking of maybe in future iterations of the participatory budgeting steering committee, we could be intentional about having someone represent people experiencing homelessness, since they're not necessarily tied to a specific council district, but just being very intentional about having them represented nonetheless. So, I mean, if anybody knows of anybody, I would be interested in bringing them onto the board in that capacity, but maybe that's just something for the committee that's dealing with the roles and responsibilities. Maybe you can just add that in for future years. Just a thought.
Yes, Fabian.
Yeah, I thank you, Nick. And I did try that, and Judy can tell you that I asked, and we are interested in getting people on this committee and as a budget delegate from all walks of life. So if you know somebody, the only thing is we ask the council member to endorse the applicant. So we'll have to ask the local council member to acknowledge that. However, when we made the presentation to the council, we gave ourselves the ability to choose 5 members that we did here in the mayor's office. So even if it's not somebody that the council member endorses, we can bring them in if you have anybody that you would like to recommend. But yeah, I mean, we want to have people from all backgrounds. And believe me, I did try, and it's very hard to ask people that are, in an unstable situation, working 2 jobs or whatever, to do what you guys are doing, which is a lot of work, and I appreciate you.
One other thing, and this is again very early in this knowledge base, but we're judging things based on their ideas, not where they're coming from, correct? Like if I hear something from someone who's experiencing homelessness and I put it in on their behalf, that idea has as much chance coming to fruition as submitted it directly.
It should. the quick catch up on that, Ben, is that the final ballot ideally is going to have one idea from all 35 council districts.
Okay.
But something I thought was really smart on Judy's flyer that she was handing out, or instructions for providers, is to have people register if they don't have a home address, to have them register at wherever they're filling out the ballot. So that might be room at the inn, that might be a library, that might be the contributor office. So it's ensuring that people have a way to participate even if they don't have a consistent location.
On that note, I also give people an option if they want to, let's say they have a corner where they feel that's kind of where they identify. Usually they go with the contributor location, but or a street corner or some address that they choose. That's an option as well that I offer them.
The reason I brought that up is because in the past we have had, I say we because I worked at Room the Inn, but we had people from different organizations come in and facilitate kind of question and answer kind of sessions. So I think participatory budgeting could be a great kind of opportunity where they have kind of a classroom kind of setting where you can kind of talk about what's our purpose, what kind of ideas would be best received, and then people could work together to come up with those ideas, and then those and so that's a great resource there. And I Room in the Inn, even things like they can encourage folks to go to the quote unquote less fun activities such as this with stuff like laundry cards, and they have a points-based system kind of steer people in that direction too. That's a way where I would imagine, if things have not changed, that one of us as a volunteer, I'd also be happy to do that, could have a way to hit 20, 30 people experiencing homelessness all at once. There could even be several sessions of that.
First of all, Ben, you're new here. This is fun, okay? This is really fun. Second of all, I think it's a great idea, and it's certainly something to add into our community engagement discussion in the subcommittee that I'm on. Other questions for Judy, thoughts? Judy, I also appreciated that you spoke about this in terms of, all marginalized communities and all people who are struggling with poverty. And so we also need to ensure that we're including those voices that do not, fall under the umbrella of people experiencing homelessness, but are people who probably don't feel as though they have much of a voice in this city. And so being creative in engaging everybody who's kind of just north of that homelessness umbrella, I think is probably really valuable. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Judy, this might be something for the outreach committee, but I really think the two handouts that were sent to us are excellent. I mean, really clear, concise, great language. And I wonder if could that not be posted on the budgetary website, government website? Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that we should look at as a group. Maybe that's a good use for our projector when we get together in person, to just run through it and make sure nothing jumps out at anybody. And I do want to quadruple check about how everything needs to be a capital improvement, because that in fact may not be true in this cycle. Fabian is shaking his head no. Is that no, I'm wrong, or no, not everything has to be a capital improvement?
No, Chair, you're always right. And you're right on this one too. You guys, the information I sent you that I got from Mary Jo from the finance department gave a very broad definition of what it was eligible. So it goes beyond capital improvement. It can be grants, it can be a variety of things. And as you guys decide to work on eligibility, you're likely going to narrow it down even more or not. But that's going to be your decision to make.
I'm adding always right to my Twitter bio, Fabian. All right, last call for comments on this, or shall we let our incredibly talented and brilliant guest go? Elizabeth.
Quick question for you. First of all, thank you so much. This has been great. The question is about voting and how you would see that best working.
I think the main question there is really for you to focus on how you determine residency. That's kind of where I, just from the perspective of people that do not have a residence, is it allowed? I mean, how do you get around that? Is it that it could be as simple as what we have been doing? Is it allowing that people fill it out at the contributor and give that address, give Ruminant's address, give Nashville Rescue Mission address, just where they are staying or where they frequent. And also for people that are actually sleeping outdoors, there are some of these addresses that they could use. And I am happy to put together some eligible addresses for you that and just less restrictive. The less restrictive, the better. But at the same time, I do understand that you need to kind of verify that somebody's actually in Davidson County as well. But my suggestion is to pick certain addresses where you like, okay, you can pick, people will know which addresses there are. People on the streets know the address of Nashville Rescue Mission, Room and Inn, Ken and Carol's, and contributor, just places like that.
Jeff, I see your hand.
Hello. I have a related question to the voting, especially regards to residency. And is it true that everybody can vote in every district's categories, or would you only vote for categories in your own district?
No, it's one big ballot. So there'll be one from each district ideally represented on the ballot, but then it's a citywide process. So everybody gets to vote for their top 5.
Once, right?
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
vote early, vote often, but yes,
everybody
ideally
gets
one.
to vote once on a whole slate of different projects for each county. So everybody gets one vote in each county, each district.
No, everybody gets 5 votes total for the 35 projects that are on the ballot.
Thank you. That makes it clear. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Did we talk about just from a voting standpoint, like doing force ranked or anything like that? Number 1, number 2, like priorities. Did we talk about that in a previous meeting?
That sounds like a wonderful thing for the voting subcommittee to address as they begin discussing today. All right, let's all give a big round of WebEx applause to Judy for joining us. Thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful, and thank you so much for everything you've been doing. Oh wait, Michelle Boudreau, I see your hand is raised. Was it really raised?
No, I was doing the clapping emoji.
Oh, it was clapping.
Yes.
I'm blind. That's nice. Okay. Then thanks, Judy. Thanks for everything you've been doing. Thanks for being such a trusted resource for Fabian as well as for myself and for so many people in the city. So please.
Well, thanks for having me, and any ideas you have how I can be of support, please keep reaching out.
We
Thank
absolutely
you.
will.
Thanks so much.
Have a great night.
Bye.
All right. Next up on our open mic stage tonight is our very own Fabian Bednay. He wanted to speak, and I think a lot of us probably wanted to hear a little bit more about the social vulnerability index that we're working off of, which, is that map that's in all of our Bibles. And I think he wanted to talk a little bit more about what that was derived from, how it's going to work, and how funding is going to be distributed across the ideas that come out of those regions. So, Fabian, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair, and hello, everybody. I'm going to try to keep it very short. I know that, I don't want to bore you. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a website from the CDC. on social vulnerability index, and it's very self, explaining. And you can see here is basically a way to measure the negative effects on communities caused by external stresses on human health. And the reason why we went with SBI on participatory budgeting was to make sure that we met the requirements of the American Rescue Plan to help communities recover from the impact of COVID. So I just wanted to show you this website, and you guys should give it a try if you want to get more information. It uses 16 different variables to help come up with those coefficients. I just wanted to go into more detail on how we are proposing to use it and what we put on the legislation that the council approved. So I'm going to go to the next slide. The next slide is this map that you guys have a copy of. I'm going to share it now. And I'm showing this because some of you have asked me this question many times, and I just wanted to go over it just to clarify. So let's say, please. It's not good. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm going to put it on the share. So let's, for example, look at this district number 2. So district number 2 is the one that is defined by all these red line that you see here, right? And as you can see on district number 2, there are some SBI areas that are of a higher SBI and some that are on the lower SBI. And for example, on district 6 here on the right, there is an area that it has a low SBI. It has an area it pretty much has all the different SBI ratios. So there is not a correlation necessarily between the political map and the SBI map. The SBI map is generated based on data that the census provides and the CDC compiles to create those ratios. And the map, the council district map, the political map, as you are probably going to learn very soon, is a result of federal laws that have to do with the Voting Rights Act and our staff in Metro Council and the council members deciding how to create those boundaries. So there are two different things that don't necessarily reflect each other. So the reason I'm showing you these two maps overlap is because the political map is the choice we made to have 35 districts that kind of provided some equity citywide of projects. And then the SBI map is to help decide how to weight the funding of the different projects. So any questions so far about this?
What did you say the non-district boundaries were?
The non-district boundaries are the different colors you see on the screen reflect different SBI coefficients. So I'm going to share a different thing real fast, just in case some of you haven't seen it. And in here you can see that the lower the SBI, the lower of the amount of money allocated for that particular SBI. So on the lower SBI here, there is $1 million. On the higher SBI, from 0.75 to 1 is $4 million. So the more vulnerable a part of the city is, the higher the amount of money for projects on that part of the city. And we do that to, again, to meet the requirements of the American Rescue Plan that we have to address in an equitable way how we use the resources.
I guess like the boundaries of like those purple lines, is that like a neighbor?
Let me bring it.
Are the lines already drawn first and then they're colored?
Let me bring it up.
I
The purple lines are the council districts. So for example, here, here is District 2, and the council district will be going all the way here for District 2. But inside that, you have an overlapping of the social vulnerability index. We have follows a different type of map, and it has to do with all these variables that they have. So I was just trying to make sure that you guys saw the difference between one and the other.
So Fabian, let's use District 6 as an example because it has all of the colors. If somebody living in District 6 at an address that falls within the wealthier section of that district recommends an idea that would serve the entire district, but their address and or the address of where they want to put the service doesn't fall within the more vulnerable portion of the district, how would something like that be allocated?
That's a great question. So, for example, if a project falls here on the left, it will be weighted differently than if a project is placed here on the yellow. So, like I said, the votes are not weighted, the projects are weighted. So depending on where the project is, that's where the amount of money will be allocated. So if the budget delegates choose to put the project on the darker blue area, it will be more likely to get funded than if they put it on the yellow area. Because on the yellow area, they will be competing for $1 million. On the darker blue area, they will be competing for $4 million.
So if somebody, I'll just use an example that jumps to mind. If somebody who lives right outside of Shelby Park, where that X is in the yellow, if they say, I want to have a community fridge here in District 6 for the community to access, it would behoove them to say, and I would like that community fridge to be located closer to Casey Homes, which is in the dark purple area. Do the people who are submitting the ideas need to be aware of this map? Or is that something, can the budget delegates then say, okay, we like this community fridge idea, we're going to make sure it's located in the purple section?
I like your question a lot. And it will be better if people understood this, but as you're going to see, as I try to explain this to you, it is a little bit on the complex side. So it's not something that you can do on an elevator speech very well. So that's where the budget delegates come in. The budget delegates are going to be the ones trying to, put together this ballot. And I will hope that the budget delegates will choose to place the items on the part of the district that is more beneficial for that district. But
will they be able to reach out directly to the people who submitted the idea and say, love this, but let's move it? Will they be able to communicate directly with the idea generator?
They cannot really influence the idea generator, but they can be creative about the idea. So if somebody submits an idea and say, I would like to have, like you said, something, but it doesn't have a very specific address, then they could actually, it could be, the idea could be, I want something that will benefit Shelby Park. It doesn't have to be located on Shelby Park necessarily. It can be located in a different part of the place. The beauty of the budget delegate process is that they can be very creative about using all these ideas and trying to come up with a project that reflects the idea or is tied to that idea, but they can actually combine different ideas and make it into a project. So it is important that people submit the idea because otherwise the budget delegate cannot get it out of thin air. But once the idea is there, the budget delegate can work with the idea to try to be creative only if it has a connection with an idea that is being submitted. Like I said, they cannot just make something up.
I'd like to say, I think the projects should be judged by where they're located relative to the vulnerability. If wherever the project is located, not the person that submits the project's location. So where the result of the money going, where it benefits.
Well, that's where your project development committee is going to study. We proposed to the council, and the council approved it the way I described it to you. So what's going to be weighted is the project and its location reference to this map. So for the project to be able to get to be part of the $4 million, it will have to be located on a dark blue area. If it's located on the yellow area, it'll be competed for $1 million. Now, you guys, the committee that is going to work on project development is the one that is going to give instruction to the budget delegates on how to create the ballot. That you guys can propose additional recommendations for the budget delegates on how to do it, but they cannot violate the legislation that was approved by the council. Anyway, let me move on a little bit more, and then I have other stuff to show that might help. So again, like this map, you guys have it already, but I am happy to send it to you digitally if you want to explore it. All right, so when I tried to explain this process, I decided to put together this Excel file that I'm getting ready to share to help people navigate this process. So as you can see here on the left, there's all the council districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. We don't have a budget for it because the budget delegates didn't put the ballot yet. So we don't know, what project will be on District 1 or on District 2 or on the District 3. We definitely don't know how many votes it will get because voting won't happen till October or November. And one thing I did here is when I look at the map, I tried to pick the more vulnerable part of that district. So in District 1, the more vulnerable part is 0.5, District 2 is 1, District 3 is 0.75. This doesn't mean that when the budget delegates put the ballot together that it will reflect this, but I was just trying to be optimistic about it. Okay? Any questions about this?
Well, this is somewhat related to this. Is in terms of the process, I've been on grant before where after, like, there's a kind of a pre-award process where you kind of put everything on the board, and it could be, I can imagine a scenario where the intent of this process is good in terms of more money to the more vulnerable areas, but I can imagine a scenario where there's like a weird number such that it might be better for this budget to go within this other bucket. Am I making sense? Is there a kind of like a post vote?
Ben, my advice will be that you just read through the guidelines that were proposed and start working with the committees on what do you want to do with all those guidelines, and if you want to propose new things. I understand, this is your first meeting, so you have all these ideas, but just give it some time to dive into the process, and I think you're going to find many of the answers you're looking into the process and watching the recordings of the prior meetings. I see some hands raised. Should I, do you guys want me to answer questions? I see, for example, Jason, you have your hands up.
Yeah, Fabian, you can just drive whose questions you're in.
Okay. Jason? Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question. I was going through the voting piece and, I'm just trying to like envision, if there's a project for all 35 districts, and there's however many, the top 5, whatever, and like, what if those aren't in the dark blue? And, yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that, but.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I have a bit of like a hypothetical or make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Like when we were looking at that map there at a District 6 where like Shelby Street in District 6 goes between like 3 different zones there. I think I'm understanding that like it would be the responsibility if however the budget delegates decide, but like a hypothetical project could be like placing trash cans along Shelby Street in District 6. And then that could mean that the part that is in that index could have more trash cans per feet than as it transverses across, Shelby Street there, where, at 60 or at 24 and Shelby there. And then as you go into the lower vulnerable air, the less vulnerable areas, the number of trash cans per feet, like the budget for that would be less as you traversed. And that could be a good type of thing for, am I understanding how that works? Is that right?
That level of detail, I think is something that you guys need to decide as you give instructions to the budget delegates. In general, the way I understood it is that a project, in this case, if it's placed on the darker blue area, it will have a higher chance of getting funded because it will be competing for $4 million instead of $1 million. I don't know if you guys want to stretch that out to where something like that could extend further out. Now, I do know that, for example, if somebody were to propose a grant to an entity that is located in the dark blue area, that grant would probably help not only the people that are within the blue area, but it may help people, across the city. So some of these funds will have a wider impact than just the dark blue area. But you are competing for a project with a specific address at a specific location. And that's the instructions that you guys need to give the budget delegates on how to handle things like that. I don't know that I'm answering your question very well, but I'm not supposed to tell you what to do.
No, okay. Yeah, it kind of sounds like it's not supposed to transverse across an area as much as just be centered on a single color then.
But I think what I'm hearing is that those of you who are on the proposal development committee have the ability to pencil in some specific instructions to those budget delegates to use common sense and taking that into account. So, as we come up on this opportunity to break into subcommittees to look at how you could potentially pencil that in, I think it's probably also important to consider, again, people who are experiencing homelessness and where they live, or as Judy mentioned, where they identify as residing. And, if a place where somebody resides is located within a yellow area, because that's the corner that they're choosing to stand on each day, is there something that we as the steering committee can pencil in for that as well? So I hate to put the onus of all of this on you folks in proposal development, but you're not alone. We will all, as a group, be helping. You just need to get the ball rolling.
Okay, just to finish my presentation, I just wanted to share how a scenario, how will it work when people vote, right? So like I said before, this spreadsheet doesn't have a lot of information because all this information hasn't been collected. So what I did is I created an imaginary form with imaginary numbers just to help you visualize how will that work. So I'm going to stop sharing this one and sharing this other one that might help you see it better. So in this case, for example, I put a random number of votes, and so I'm going to sort them from largest to smaller because that's how the projects get funded. And the item that has more votes will be on top, right? Can you guys see the screen okay? So like this column with the votes, a project on District 34 that was $425,000 got 461 votes. And because it got more votes on an area with a 0.5 SBI, which is here, it got funded. The next item got funded as well. The next item got funded as well. But then when it hits over the threshold, it stops getting funded. So everything that is green is getting funded because it's below the threshold. Everything that is red means that it went beyond the threshold and it won't get funded. So in this case, for example, on the column that has to do with the higher SBI, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 projects that got funded until it got to over $4 million. And so then the next project doesn't get funded because the ceiling is $4 million for that particular district. So as you can see, the objective of this is to measure, the budget of each item and the number of votes of each item. So let's change this and let's say that this project in District 34 really got 200 votes. So I'm going to sort it again from higher, largest to smaller. And now that project doesn't get funded anymore because District 35 got more votes and it changed the way this column works. Are you guys seeing what I'm trying to show? I mean, basically, the variables that matter, we won't know till after people vote. But the variables are how much money does each project cost and how many votes the project get, and also the SBI for that particular project. So a lot of this is going to be decided by the budget delegates. Like in this case, I made all the projects the $425,000. I could have made this project $1 million. Is that $1 million? So by making that project $1 million, then only 2 projects get funded in that SBI. But if you make all the projects like $200,000, then it changes and more projects get funded. So the point here is that the value of the project matters, the SBI of the project matters, and the number of votes that they will get after people step up and vote will matter as well. Any questions about this? So that's why what you guys are getting ready to do is so important. Giving instruction to the budget delegates on how to do this work they're getting ready to do is going to help them a lot by you guys giving them guidance on all that. And making sure that people that usually don't participate in the process actually come out and vote is going to help, because what's going to put the projects on top is the number of votes they get. So engaging, encouraging people to participate and vote, engaging people to submit ideas that are diverse and interesting is going to help. Engagement, all the things that you guys are getting ready to step in and start working on are going to help with the outcome of the process. That's all I had, Whitney. I mean, I think people are going to digest this and ask me additional questions, and I'm going to try to keep you guys informed.
Does anyone have anything they want to ask right now that, remember, you can always send Fabian an email. He can respond directly to you.
I see a question on the chat, if I can answer that question. What we usually do with the balance, the gap between the last project and the amount of money in the ceiling, is we put it in contingency. And so you guys also get to think about what do you want to do with that contingency. It's usually good to have some contingency just in case when the projects start getting implemented, if we need to allocate additional funds for the project to be able to work. We are going to be asking the metro departments to help us budget these projects, but life happens. Like we had a terrible inflation in the last couple of years. So some of the projects, when they told us that they could do it for an X amount of money, and that being more money. So I will encourage you guys to make sure that you leave some contingency in the system just to be able to use it later on. So that was my answer to that question.
All right, thanks, Fabian. That's great. Y'all, let's go ahead and jump on into the biggest task ahead of us. So does everybody have their hymnal with you? You don't have to show it to me. So if you recall at the previous meeting, and for those of you who weren't at the previous meeting, hopefully you noticed that we had everybody self-select into a series of categories of subcommittees that correspond with pages of this document. Fabian went ahead and divided y'all up. And you did send that to everybody, right, Fabian? Yes. That wasn't just to me.
I did send an email to everybody. There were some people that signed up today. I can show it on the screen. Hold on.
So you're all in those groups now, right? So if you're in charge of roles and responsibilities, you're doing the first 3 through 10, yada yada. You can see the page breakdowns as you're going through your hymnal. Something that I want to be just really super mindful of is that these subcommittees are here to get the ball rolling on these things. No one is going to be the end all be all of this. We're doing this as a group. And as I alluded to in my email, obviously things like eligibility, things like we were just talking about in terms of project development and instructions to the budget delegates of things to consider, that's something that really deserves all of our input. But logically, I think we can all agree that there are definitely things in here that are going to be pretty easy to blow through, especially I'm just thinking specifically of roles and responsibilities wherein we've kind of already, like, our horse is so far ahead of this cart at this point because we kind of have already elected an executive committee and we did our attendance policy already and whatever. So, if you're on a committee and you see that you're just kind of blowing through it and you don't have a lot of changes or don't need to have a lot of changes, that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. Remember, this is from past cycles, but there probably is wisdom in here to take into account. So the goal for the remainder of this meeting is to just get your feet wet in those subcommittees, look at the material that we have and see what needs to be considered as something that should change. Feel free to make notes on the papers. Then when we all get together in our next in-person meeting, we'll go ahead and have the subcommittees present, stuff that they feel pretty confident about, as well as underscore things that are, probably going to need to be decided within the full group. We did ask for people to step up in leadership positions in each of these subcommittees. I noticed that only 2 of them did. One is me because I'm that jerk. And then Michael Jones is in charge of eligibility, is the chair of eligibility and selection. I can't talk. In the subcommittees that don't have a designated chair on this list, I would ask that you just kind of figure that out amongst yourselves. It's really just more to have somebody who's helpful in terms of steering the conversation and helping it from going down a rabbit hole. Also, we don't have enough non-steering committee member adults in the room to take notes independently in each room. So I know that Fabian and Quinta and Misha can each break up into a room, but I would recommend maybe that the room that Carol's in, Carol, if you don't mind, just go ahead and be your brilliant secretary self. And then if there's not a note-taking person in your room, somebody just go ahead and volunteer to do that who's fairly good at it. We just need it for minutes. No one's coming to your house to tell you that you did it wrong. So with that said, Fabian, how do we break into these groups within the context of this WebEx meeting? Is that something you need to do? Are you just going to spin us all out?
Yeah, I have it set up and I will be jumping from room to room. Okay. And so, but if anybody needs to text me while you are in the different rooms, let me know. I think I got you guys where you need to be. So if you guys are ready, I'll start sending you in.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
this is Quinta. So I engaged 2 members from the former participatory budgeting process to be facilitators or advisors, resource people for this session. If you are not going to need them, I just want to let them know that they're excused from the meeting. We had Misha, myself, Barbara Scott and Charles Scott, who committed to come in, and we had assigned them to their various areas in the breakouts. But if you're not going to need them, I just want to let them know that they're excused from this further participating in this discussion.
Okay, thanks, Quinta, and hi, everybody. I was unaware that you were here, and Quinta, thanks so much for letting me know that they are here. I do think something we discussed as a committee at that last meeting was that we didn't want to specifically have, quote unquote, a facilitator in the subcommittees, but it is helpful to have somebody there to take notes because we want the loudest voices here to be of our steering committee members. But I'm thrilled that you've all joined us. And yes, absolutely, I think we would all be grateful to have somebody in charge of taking notes so that the committee can keep their mind on the tasks ahead. Thanks for doing that. All right, then without further ado, everybody go do good work. And again, you're all in charge of adjourning yourselves, and we'll see you in person on April Fool's Day, I think is correct. So nope, let's promise in advance to not prank each other. And as usual, I want to thank every single one of you for your time and for your service. It's invaluable. So thank you. And Fabian, sweep us away.
Okay.
Okay, I think I got kicked out, but I'm now back in. Fabian, I got kicked off for a second. Did I end up back in the right room here, Fabian?
I don't know why I'm in this room here. David, Michael, Ramona, and Shivan. Let me see, what room are you supposed to be? Community engagement, right?
I'm supposed to be in eligibility.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna leave. I'm just trying. Fabian, I have one question before I leave.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. You're supposed to be on that committee. I don't know why it didn't take you there.
I'm at the
Michael.
voting.
No, Michael.
Yeah, I don't know.
On my screen, you are assigned to that group, but I don't know why. Let me see if I can get you out. Move to, you're supposed to win an eligibility, right?
Yep.
I'm going to remove you and then put you back on eligibility. Hope it works.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. And David, David, are you there? Ramona, are you there?
Fabian, I think I'm the only one here.
Okay. What did you want to ask me, Shivan?
Yeah, about the translator for the Kurdish. The Kurdish have couple dialects. Just want to let you know. I will email it to you. One dialect that's most of the Kurdish here in Nashville. They call Badini, and I will send it to you. And make it easy for you.
All right.
And if you want the help, I think through the Salahuddin Center they can help you.
All right. Well, I already hired somebody to do it, but let's talk about it later, okay?
Okay, sir.
I need to start going from meeting to meeting.
Okay, sir. You have a great one. Thank you.
All right. Take care.